Ready? Okay. It's noted that there will be a City Council in-camera closed session meeting at 3:30 p.m., where City Council will be requested to consider approval of the following resolution. This will take place in a very brief open session immediately prior to entering into in-camera session. And the resolution is that City Council enter into in-camera session to consider the following items pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act. Bullet 1, in-camera report number DCS 2019-55 regarding potential acquisition or disposition of land pursuant to Section 239(2)(c) of the Municipal Act. And bullet number 2, review of the regular in-camera minutes of October 28, 2019. Moved by Councillor Sandis and seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor? Carry.
Yep.
Could I get you to do an audio check in the podium right there, please?
Testing 1, 2, check, check, testing. Hello, hello. Angle number 1, Marcus Hogberg.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Belleville City Council for our November 12th regular council meeting. I note that we are all in attendance, and I'll ask the Director of Corporate Services, Matt McDonald, to lead us in a moment of reflection.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Item number 3 on the agenda, disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Worship. AB 7, that's grant 4.3. As per the committee, I took pecuniary on that, and it could possibly give business to Williams Hotels, so I'll just step out for that portion.
Right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you. Reading and confirmation of the minutes of the regular council meeting of October 28, 2019, and the regular in-camera meeting of October 28, 2019. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Culhane. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Moving on to deputations. Chief Gignac, you are in the audience. Welcome, sir. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the podium to make a very special announcement, and you can share with us perhaps the background on it, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and members of our city and citizens that are in attendance today. We're here to recognize Deputy Chief Mike Callahan and Inspector Sherry Meeks for receiving the Order of Merit of the Police Forces from Her Excellency, Governor General Julie Payette. Sovereign of the order is Queen Elizabeth II. And I'd like to just read to Mayor and the Council some history about the Order of Merit of the Police Forces. And this comes from the Governor General's print from Rideau Hall. Since very ancient times has been the practice of those who distinguish themselves by their exemplary courage or merit to be awarded some mark of distinction. Throughout the centuries, these marks of honor have taken many forms, from the laurel wreaths in which the early Greeks and Romans crowned their heroes, to special presentation swords and other weapons. In most recent times, it has been customary to bestow upon those to be honored a special badge in the form of a medal, star, or cross suspended from a ribbon and worn around the neck or pinned to the lapel, as you see, as you've seen yesterday in Remembrance Day for a lot of the veterans. The Order of Merit of the Police Forces confers no special privileges on its members and brings them no monetary rewards. In 1967, during Canada's centennial year, the Order of Canada was established as a means of honoring individuals for a lifetime of achievement, merit, and service to the nation. In 1972, the Cross of Valor, Star of Courage, and Medal of Bravery were instituted to reward acts of bravery performed while attempting to save a life or to prevent a catastrophe. The Order of Military Merit was also established in 1972 to recognize Canadian Armed Forces members who have distinguished themselves through exceptional service. The Order of Merit of the Police Forces, as a means of recognizing conspicuous merit and exceptional service by the members of the police forces, was created in the year 2000. It is a society of honor with 3 degrees of recognition: commander, officer, and member. Appointments to the order are made by the Governor General on the recommendation of the Commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. An advisory committee has the task of assessing the relative merits of persons who are nominated for the order and recommending to the Commissioner the names of those considered especially worthy of appointment. Maintenance of the high standards of admission and consequently the prestige of the order is ensured by the Constitution of the order, which limits appointments to 0.1% of the average number of persons who were members and employees of the police forces during the preceding year. That's not a lot of folks. Following their initial appointment, officers and members are eligible for elevation within the order at some future time in recognition of future achievement. Appointed to the Officer of Merit was Deputy Chief Mike Callahan. He was one of 3 to receive that order in Canada. Inspector Sherry Meeks was one of 36 officers across Canada to be appointed member Order of Merit. A little bit about some of the highlights of the narrative that was accepted by the Governor General and the Commissioner of the RCMP. Goes through some pretty rigorous screening. There's been multiple high station accomplishments that both Deputy Chief Callahan and Inspector Meeks have accomplished in their policing career. Remember, this is for a lifetime and a career of high achievement. Mike was seconded to the Department of Foreign Affairs, International Trade, and Aboriginal Affairs in 2010. He was a subject matter expert for police advisory to that department. He created numerous projects and initiatives over his career, including the Direct Action Response Team for the region of Ottawa, which was very important at that juncture in time with the type of crime and things that were occurring in the region of Ottawa. The Guns and Gangs and Firearm Enforcement Team. Mike was that unit commander, the first one appointed by the Chief of Police in Ottawa. He was a nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare weapons expert in the heavy urban search and rescue environment with the region of Ottawa. And he's also published in the scientific journal for dispersion rates for anthrax, for counter-terrorism planning in Canada for police responses. He was seconded to Foreign Affairs as a special advisor for internal and international security and logistical planning for the G8 and the G20 summits. And that's within the last decade. He created the Walkabout program for city councillors in the city of Ottawa to bring them into certain neighborhoods where their constituents were that had a special demographic, a certain culture or language, and introduce the councillors to many people, which was very fruitful in Ottawa for that period of time. There were so many changes coming in with many immigrants, and Mike was key in developing that program and assisting City Council and councillors with relationship enhancement. He's a member of the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police and Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, and Mike chairs the Education, Training, and Professional Development Committee at the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police. He's a Loyalist alumni, developed the Shop with a Cop program, brought it to our great city of Belleville. 20 young people share a good amount of time with a bunch of police officers to shop at the Quinte Mall. Special thanks to Mayor and Lisa Panchuk for their Boston Pizza support during that event. Quinte Children's Foundation, the Trillium Foundation, the Inclusivity Committee, and several advisor roles within our municipality that Mike has had active participation in. He's received 70, to the time I submitted the nomination, 70 recognitions from local business and community groups since he's been here in January 2016. It's been a lifetime of work and dedicated service, of honorable service. Mike is the recipient of the Police Exemplary Service Medal with the 30-year clasp for exemplary police service, and now is Officer, Order of Merit of the Police Forces. Inspector Sherry Meeks, 23 years of policing, University of Waterloo graduate. Sherry has been a distinct member of our society here in the region of Quinte for many years. Born and raised in the area. Some of her highlights and accomplishments has been the recruit field training and manual standardization that the Ontario Police College, and I've spoke about this at Police Services Board meetings, and 33 of Ontario police forces are utilizing and had requested her standardization feature manual, as well as the Ontario Police College, developing that into their coach officer and standardization program at the college. We were the first municipality in the province to secure LIN funding for 3 years for our Health IM project. In conjunction with our hospital. We have several agencies on referral, and it greatly enhances our ability to be able to, when we deal with somebody that's suffering with a mental health crisis on a call, or perceived to be at some time in the future, we can notify the hospital ahead of attending to reduce the officer and the physician time at the hospital and for the police service, saving a lot of public safety hours for officers to return to frontline duties. Okay? On top of that, the referrals that occur from Health IM, and we've already had some excellent cases come out since its launch a couple of weeks ago, we're able to expeditiously and most importantly address the needs of our vulnerable citizens and citizens who could become compromised in a quick and hasty manner with a permanent record on file now between the police and the hospital. She's spent just over 20 years participating on several community boards, stemming from community mental health. She has been a part-time professor at Loyalist College teaching police subject matter expertise on a number of subjects. She was the Police Iron Door Project lead, which was the lead into our technology drive for the Connected Officer program. We're the first in North America to develop such a program. We've just had calls from Chicago and LAPD wondering where are you, Belleville? Where are you, Belleville? So Sherry and actually Dep Callahan have been great champions of that Connected Officer program. She is currently the Operations Divisional Commander for the Belleville Police Service. She had a great involvement in developing our peer support and well-being program at the Belleville Police Service, enhanced most recently in January of 2019 with the addition of Padre Brad Beal coming into our ranks, and partnership with Wounded Warriors of Canada, which we now have allocations of courses with at no cost to the municipality or the police service. She is a crisis and a hostage negotiator and facilitated a lot of the training for various provincial elements stemming from her knowledge and expertise of crisis and hostage negotiation. Her community volunteerism is second to none. She was the first Belleville Police Service executive officer that was appointed in that newly created position in 2015, developed the position. She's been a guest speaker at numerous policing venues and local community venues. And one that comes to my mind was Sherry's involvement with the United Nations International Women Leaders in Policing conference. It was an international conference held 2 years ago in Ottawa, and Sherry was invited there, and she did some great liaison and relationship forging there with the international leaders that were women in policing from all across the world. Numerous commendations and letters. She is honored previously by the Governor General's Medal for Educational Excellence, for excellence in education. She's a recipient of the Police Exemplary Service Medal, and she is now a member of the Order of Merit of the Police Forces. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for hearing this deputation. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Chief. The men and women who work for the city and also work for the Belleville Police Service are our greatest assets, and we are so proud of the very many great works that they do. Many of them receive recognition for that, but to be recognized as part of the top 0.1% of people in that industry is a spectacular achievement, and it's one in which Belleville City Council also wanted to share in and to also pass along our congratulations. I'm going to come back and, with your assistance, Chief, present some certificates, and then I'm going to ask Deputy Chief Callahan and Inspector Meeks to speak as well, but first we'll present these certificates. I'll ask Councillor McCaw as well from the Police Service Board to join us. First, Deputy Chief Callahan. Deputy Chief Callahan, you have the floor. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council, and invited guests, and friends and family. To say that I'm humbled would be a true understatement. I've been very, very blessed in my career to have the opportunity to do so many different things, and as the Chief often alludes to, and he's 100% correct, about servitude. And it's about being able to serve our community and give back to the community. And I've been very blessed to have my previous employer and now with the Belleville Police Service. And at the end of the day, whether it's any of our emergency service partners, what we're trying to do is make a difference in the community for the safety of the entire community. And if along the way that we're able to make a difference in the community with what we do, then we've succeeded. And thank you very, very much to everybody for the acknowledgement of this. As I said, I'm truly humbled. But for that servitude to happen, there's one very, very critical and important factor that has to happen. And that is to have that support. And I've been very blessed over the past 30 years to be married to a wonderful, wonderful lady who has supported me and given up her own career so that I could have the career that I have today. So this medal is on behalf, or a huge thank you to my wife, Terry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Callahan. Inspector Meeks, congratulations to you as well.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. I'm not going to say too much other than Mike stole everything from me, but I too am very proud and beyond humbled to receive this recognition. I'm proud, especially because I grew up in this area. John Masterakis, who just leaned forward, said, they didn't say you graduated from Center Hastings in Madoc, but that's where I graduated, and I was very proud and happy to, I left and came back because I liked it so much, and my family, my mom and dad were still residing in the area. So one thing I really wanted to highlight that the deputy had already mentioned is that I wouldn't be standing here and have a career in policing if it wasn't the support of my family, who joined me in Ottawa. But my husband of 25, almost 25 years, he has put up with a lot for me with this career and the demands that this career can place on a family and my two teenagers, as well as my mom and my dad, who's since passed, but my mom, who probably worried as much as anybody can possibly worry in this, having a daughter in this field, but I wouldn't be standing up here if it wasn't for the support of my family either. So thank you to the community as well, and to the people that I've worked with in Belleville for the past 24 years. This is for them. Oh, thank you.
Well, again, Deputy Chief Callahan, Inspector Meeks, congratulations. You know, part of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you cannot be comfortable if you don't have security. And you and your colleagues on the Belleville Police Service keep us safe, and we appreciate the work you do each and every day, and we're proud of your accomplishments and this recognition. I also want to thank Chief Gignac for making the nominations and for bringing this to the attention of the RCMP inspector that was able to bring it forward. The fact that we recognize within our organization the leadership and the people who have who make us what it is today. We're so proud to hear that other jurisdictions are contacting us in Belleville, contacting you to find out what you're doing and how you've led the way. It is, it's truly inspiring for all of us. We thank you for your service, and we wish you Godspeed and safety for the rest of your careers. Thank you. With that, I will ask for a resolution to accept the recognition and congratulations of Deputy Police Chief Mike Callahan for being awarded the Officer Order of Merit of the Police Services, and Inspector Sherry Meeks for being awarded the Member of the Order of Police Services for Canada on October 31st, 2019 at Rideau Hall in Ottawa. Moved by Councillor McCaw, seconded by Councillor Culhane. All in favor? It's carried. Congratulations again. It's our pleasure to host you. Next, I'd like to ask David Allen, President and CEO of the YMCA of Central East Ontario, to make a deputation to Council. Good afternoon, Mr. Allen.
Good afternoon, Your Worship.
I want to thank you very much for coming today to share this very exciting announcement for the YMCA of Belleville, and indeed for the entire city of Belleville. I understand you're going to share some information which has been a long time in coming, and is a result of lots of hard work and determination by your board, by your volunteers, your members, and your staff. I want to be the first to congratulate you for being here today, and I give the floor to you.
Thank you. It's I've spoken at council many times, and this is probably the most exciting time that I've ever had the opportunity to speak. I'd like to start out by, there's often a lot of questions that people ask about the why, so I'm going to share a story with you if I may be so bold. This is a letter that we received. My name is Denise and I teach grade 7, mostly to youth. I teach around the age 12 to 13 years, which can be a real difficult age. It puts them in a unique situation of still being a kid, but also having new expectations regarding decision-making and independence in a variety of situations. I try to help students find their way and help them develop sound decision-making skills. Unfortunately, there are those that, due to their personal circumstances, you just feel you can't reach. One such student, a withdrawing young lady struggling with mental illness, had a really hard time this year. After a long year of high absence rates, low academic performance, inability to communicate with peers and teachers, and frequent professional interventions, we finally saw a breakthrough when our class began a 5-week exercise routine at the Ymca as part of our physical education program. Unexpectedly, she was never absent on the days we were at the Y, and she participated fully in each of the activities. Her participation during each and every activity was beyond anything I had seen all year. I was surprised and elated, and finally she was engaged. In our post-class wrap-up, the student told me, "I like being at the Y. It's good to be around people and doing stuff to be healthy with other people. Doing activity is good to keep someone fit and active, but it's also good for mental health because it gets you out and being with people." Imagine my glee reading these comments from a student who hadn't engaged at all that year. As a parent, I already know how amazing the YMCA has been for my teenage boys. Knowing that the students have a safe, active, social place is so critical for their development. Thank you for your commitment to the young adults. This girl is now taking steps with her youth worker to build on this experience and attend the Y more often. I know this will be the start of getting her on the track with her mental health. I'd like to acknowledge that with me this afternoon I have from Quinte Vocational Support Services, Mike Vida, the Executive Director, and his Board Chair, Steve Halloran. From Volunteer Information Quinte, Executive Director, Brenda Snyder. And from our YMCA, we have from our Board Chair, Vi Ellsworth, past Board Chair, John Masterakos, Board Member Sandy Hope, and Board Member John Unright Jr. So today we're going to talk about the Center for Life, a community connection hub. Our vision is that the Center for Life will be a safe place where diversity will be celebrated. People from all backgrounds and abilities will come together to improve their health, find supportive resources, and build connections. People will transform themselves. Together, we will strengthen our community. We looked at this from an evidence-based approach to community development and looking at well-being from 3 positions: physical health, mental health, and sense of well-being. A recent study done by the Wellesley Institute in Toronto found that the benefits of a YMCA Center of Community, the use of YMCA programs and services in general, have strong relationships to well-being and is associated with better general health, mental health, and a stronger sense of belonging. Having Y programs or facilities in a neighborhood appears to provide a lift to everyone, regardless of whether they actually use the Y programs and services or not. And Y participants are likely to have greater longevity, reduced risk to disease and illness, better future income, productivity, and greater community contributions. Our 4 objectives for the Center for Health, for the Center for Life: improve access and support inclusion, connect services and build community, impact community health and well-being, and support healthcare services to alleviate the stress in our current system. I don't like to make it as a joke, but sometimes I'll tell people that actually organizations like the Y are in the healthcare business, while hospitals deal in the sick care business. And we want to take care of people and get them healthy so they don't have to go to our hospitals and have to use those services. So we have our strategic partners. Of course, we have QVSS, Volunteer Information Quinte, and the City of Belleville. This project could not move forward without the City of Belleville. The current state that we're in Our YMCA Center is past its lifespan. It's 55 years old. We cannot meet the potential growing population demands of our city. We're not accessible. We're certainly not wheelchair accessible, and we cannot grow and serve more people. Quinte Vocational Support Services is in the industrial park. They are isolated. They serve upwards of 50 to 60 individual disabilities daily. They are limited in their programming due to transportation. They are limited in their space for quality programming and limited opportunities for increased social inclusion and activities with their clients. Volunteer Information Quinte currently serves 27,500 social service agencies, and they look after upwards of 1,500 volunteers per year, providing assistance and support to many agencies, but they too are limited in their space and their ability to grow. For our future state, we look at the Center for Life as being certainly meeting with our AODO standards. It'll allow us to serve more people. It'll allow people that with physical challenges to make use and have access to health and physical programming. For our friends at QVSS, it will increase the number of individuals that they will be served daily. They will increase on-site access to programming such as health and wellness, increased space for quality programs, and increased opportunities for social inclusion. VIQ, of course, will continue to serve this 275 social service agencies, but have the potential to grow. They'll have the ability to increase their volunteer output, serve upwards of more than 1,500, just with traffic alone, and us working together to ensure that we can send people to them, and they can send people to us, and we can work together. The sharing of resources across the board, whether it's through advertising, communication, and marketing, will assist all of our local agencies. It's an incredible partnership with the City of Belleville, and I'd like to focus on that, if I may, for a moment. The current council and staff of the City of Belleville are committed to excellence and openness in local government by ensuring accessible and responsive representation, providing innovative and efficient services in support of our community's vision. Our council will invest in the future of our community and have an economic, vibrant city made up of diverse peoples who have access to programs and resources that foster their health and wellness. We'll support organizations that help us to invest in our infrastructure resources wisely to ensure we meet our current and future growth needs. I believe that the YMCA, that the Center for Life demonstrates our commitment to health and well-being for our local citizens. The new location allows us to better utilize existing city land. This investment in the Center for Life will deliver more health and wellness programs and social service programs to a traditionally underserved population of our community. I applaud Council for having the vision to look ahead. You expect our city to grow. We expect our city to grow into the West End. I don't think there's an end to any of the downloading that we see. There's an expectation that municipalities will do more with less, and I think it's vital that municipalities, businesses, not-for-profit sector work together. You shouldn't have to do it by yourself. You shouldn't have to expect it to make tough decisions and decisions that will affect our community without support. I applaud Council for assisting and moving forward with this project and supporting us. Together we can do so much more. Our Center for Life will be inclusive, a low-cost, community-based health and social service hub. We'll have a coordinated planning approach. We'll be client-focused service delivery model. And now, everybody likes pictures. So these were just some thoughts that we had of what our Center for Life might look like. The exterior of the facility. As you see, as you look, this would be standing in the lobby near the YMCA service desk, and you can see that QVSS would be right part of, just off the lobby. Another angle, you come in the front door, you can see Volunteer Information Quinte. So essentially our main service areas will be connected, will be within 50, maybe 25 feet from each other. This is an overview of the center. You can see it will have aquatic facilities, it'll have multi-purpose facilities, it'll have a gymnasium, it'll have meeting rooms, We will want to make sure that this center is fully utilized and that we welcome members of our community from all different backgrounds to make use of that center. And the financial piece. So what we are applying for through the federal infrastructure program is to build a 60,000 square foot facility for $22.5 million. The City of Belleville is a partner for $1 million. The YMCA and our partners will be $5 million, bringing to a total of $6 million. And then through the infrastructure grant program, which our MPP has supported this application, would be for $7.5 million, and our MP has also provided his support for a total of $9 million to be able to build the $22.5 million center. And I'd like to finish by saying, alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much more. And I'm humbled, and I don't mean to use the words that were spoken earlier, but I thank Council for your support. It is very much appreciated. I've said from the beginning, I arrived here in 2000. Your Worship, you and I talked about that. You arrived just shortly thereafter, or just around the same time. And I never thought I'd see the day. It's been 19 years where I could stand in front of this Council and have the support.
What incredible news, Mr. Allen. On behalf of Belleville City Council, the residents of not just our city, but also the entire region, I want to thank you for your vision, your persistent efforts that have led to you being able to make this announcement today. I know this is very personal for you, and you should be commended for finally bringing us to a place where we can all share in the vision of a new modern, multi-purpose YMCA facility in the west end of Belleville. Dave, on a personal note, I have known you since my family and I first moved to the city of Belleville way back in 2001. You and I were members of the Rotary Club back then, and at the time you were already serving the city of Belleville in so many ways. Over the years, your passion for building this new facility has been clear. You've helped me to see the many important ways that the YMCA helps residents of our city by providing recreation and other vital community services. In particular, I have seen how every member of our community, regardless of age or gender or economic ability, how they have been able to, access the YMCA's current facility and the programs to improve the quality of their lives. Today is a very important day, which I know will change the lives of many of our current and future residents and change them for the better. Today, we demonstrate that the City of Belleville is committed to supporting your efforts to provide indoor recreational services for the underserviced west end of our community specifically, and also for the entire City of Belleville with a new, modernized facility with expanded offerings. Today, we as Belleville City Council want to make it clear that we are behind you with more than just talk, that we as City Council are committed to developing these services in the west end of our city. You and I have discussed reaching this day for many, many years. I have always pledged my support for your efforts, and I am so pleased and proud that we have a current City Council that is behind your ambitious plans for improving our city. The west end of Belleville is experiencing substantial growth right now. We all know there is an urgent need for an indoor recreational facility and the related activities and programs that you can deliver from that facility. This City Council is publicly declaring our support for this project. We will prioritize it and help you every step of the way in order to make this a reality. It is a legacy for future generations, and we are looking forward to working with you over the coming months and years to make it so. Now, referring back to the funding model in your presentation, I know that right now, moving this project forward is dependent upon the Investing in Canada infrastructure program funding, where all three levels of government contribute. But I want to make it perfectly clear that we are 100% committed to this project. Should we not be successful with this funding application, the City of Belleville will nevertheless continue to see this facility as a necessity, and we will continue to work with you to make it a reality one way or another. Thanks again to both you and your organization, and thank you as well to our city staff who have helped bring us to today's announcement. We look forward to future updates, and thank you for your deputation today, and I'll open the floor to my colleagues to see if they have any questions or any comments. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Dave, for coming, and I want to thank the Y for everything they do in our community. This opportunity, as the mayor said, only comes once, and we need to be prepared. And we've talked about it over the years of locations to go in the West End. I've supported your vision, and we've discussed where it would go, and we have a location that's possible now on the West End. And for what you do in our community, the square footage of your building you have now then is what, Dave?
It's about 42,000 square feet, but it's double stacked.
Yeah.
There's no escalator, there's no elevator, and the hallways are about as thick as this podium.
And the new square
Wise.
footage again will be,
For our portion of the facility, be about 52,000 square feet.
so it's much bigger, and then you're going to be using the rest of it.
Correct.
And the programs, and I know will expand, are you expecting to expand the programs that you do in the new building? I know that I've been involved in your cardiac program when I had a little episode a number of years ago, and I think that's helped me, but are you going to expand your programs?
Absolutely. So we actually received support from Addiction Services. They make use of our Y quite a bit, so we can serve more individuals who are part of the Addiction Services program. We would certainly look at expanding our cardiac rehabilitation program. We actually work with the VON on a stroke program as well, stroke recovery program, and the current center just doesn't allow for that to happen. And I'm excited about the opportunity to welcome more people into a center such as this that will, I speak a lot about the Y, but also for my partners, VIQ and QVSS. I know QVSS has to take, they have to bus everywhere for their programming. This way they'll be able to walk out into a lobby and have the opportunity to participate in programs with everybody else. And
Yeah.
we'll be able to provide support to them too.
And
So-
further to that, I certainly would encourage you, sort of more on a personal maybe basis, is the cardiac program. I know Picton and Napanee have a program that's sanctioned. It would be great with the new expansion if you were able to have a sanctioned cardiac program at your Y, so,
We certainly will.
okay.
All right, thank you. Councillor Millet.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Allen. As a former member of the YMCA board from an era in the long, dark past where we almost closed the doors on that building, I can't tell you how proud I am to hear this plan. This is just an amazing, bright future for the YMCA, and I'm just so happy for yourself and the board and staff. One quick question. In an ideal world, just fleshing out this plan that you've outlined, when conceivably could we, if all the parts fell into place, the funding was available, when could we see doors open at this new Y?
So I used to say to the media back when they were doing Quinte West, when we open the doors, I said, we'll open them when the building's ready. But I can't really say that today. So the timing that we put in is we wanted to, we really wanted to make sure that, I think the closest window is, should we receive the funding, maybe announced sometime in August 2020. And then you really start your work after that to start doing the development and the drawings and all of the pieces that have to fall into place. So if I recall correctly, the goal would be to have this open by mid-2025 to 26, early 26.
All right, thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Mr. Chair. First of all, Mr. Allen, thank you very much for the presentation today. I am a current member of the Belleville YMCA, and I love it. And I think it's great that the Y is partnering with VIQ and coming together with QV support services too. Long overdue, and I think that's the way to go now, is different agencies working together, and it's easier for everybody involved that has to use the services rather. I just wanted to make a comment about the Belleville YMCA. I just jotted some notes when you were making your presentation, and someone who's there 3 or 4 times a week, this is what I take from it, and I think I speak for a lot of families. It's a special place in Belleville. The staff is key, and they are so engaging, and they're there to help. They really are. And the members are all ages. It's really nice to have a conversation with someone that's in their 70s or 80s, or somebody that's a teenager just starting their life cycle with the YMCA. Your partnerships with the community, sense of community the YMCA is when I look at the fundraising for the Strong Kids campaign. That's front and center, and think of the families that you're really helping. That's grassroots stuff. Operation Red Nose, the kickoff last weekend. I know that relationship with the city is so vital. Breakfast with Santa, I've had a chance to attend quite a few, and for many, that's an opportunity for them to celebrate with their friends and their community and their families a Christmas fun thing to do. So that's a great partnership you have with that. And when I go the odd day at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, and I see the parents, and anyone that's had their kids in daycare, when I see parents, dads and moms picking up their kids from the YMCA, knowing that when they've been at work, their child has been cared for, looked after, safe environment, and that's the number one thing parents want, is to know when they go to work that their child is safe. And that's what the YMCA offers. So I hear so many good things, and you're building relationships at the YMCA. So good luck with this project, backing it 100%, and God bless everybody there.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. And because you mentioned it, and she is here, I can't take credit for the day-to-day operations of the Belleville branch, but I can give it to my general manager, Amanda Smith, who is sitting back here. So that Operation Red Nose and all of those things. So Amanda makes that click. So thank you very much for your kind words.
Right. Anyone else? Well, Mr. Allen, I think we should say that this 60,000 square foot YMCA Center for Life is going to be supported by the city through a cash and services component. But in addition to that, there will be some land exchanging. The site will be west of the curling club, between the curling club and the Belmont Nursing Home on Bridge Street West. And the application for the ISIP funding was submitted last week. So the provincial and federal governments are now considering this with those applicants. As you said, we're expecting to have some word by the summer of 2020 going forward. But we're behind this. I want to thank Treasurer and Director Hines, as well as the Deputy Treasurer, for their work along with the City Clerk and getting this all ready for that submission. Congratulations. We are so looking forward to moving forward on this very necessary facility for our entire city and the entire community. And thank you very much for your great news presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I appreciate your support. And thank you for pointing out Matt and Brandon and Carol. They were really big help. And I just have to say, and I said it when we had met before, that Matt kept apologizing for telling me things, and I kept saying, it's okay, Matt. It's okay. These are things I need to know. So thank you, everybody.
You're welcome. I have a resolution that the deputation by David Allen, President and CEO of the YMCA Central East Ontario, be received. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Correspondence, letter from Gleaners Food Bank. It will refer to consent item 8B8, and the resolution is that the October 11, 2019, from the Gleaners Food Bank requesting a partial closure of the Keegan Parkway for the CPR holiday train on November 28, 2019 be received and referred to consent item 8B8. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Culhane. All in favor? It's carried. And 7.2, a letter from the BDIA refers to consent item 8B9. The resolution is that the September 24th, 2019 letter from the Belleville Downtown District requesting assistance with holiday events in the Downtown District be received and referred to consent item 8B9. Moved by Councillor Sandison, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor? It's carried. And now I need a motion to go into Committee of the Whole to hear and consider reports, passing of recommendations and resolutions with Councillor Kelly in the chair. Moved by Councillor Sandison, seconded by Councillor Culhane. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Mayor. Moving right along to the Committee of the Whole. Reports. The agenda shall include under report items that warrant individual attention from council. 8A1. We'll start with unacceptable customer behavior policy. Director Corporate Services Clerk's Report number DCS 2019-53. The resolution that pursuant to the Director of Corporate Service Clerk's Report number DCS 2019-53, Council approves the unacceptable customer behavior policy. Can we get a mover? Councillor Culhane, seconder. Councillor Williams, any discussion? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. And reading through this, I think it is generally fair. I think this policy lists a lot of things. However, I think what I feel we're missing on this is the yin to this yang, which is a customer or superior customer service policy in general. Just through you to the clerk real quick, do we have anything in the city of a customer service policy that exists currently?
Through the chair to Councillor Williams, I'm going through the policy book in my head. I'm not positive off the top of my head if we do. I believe we do have customer service. I mean, during orientation, we do customer service training with everybody. I know from an accessibility perspective, but I believe near the front of the policy book, there is a customer service policy, but I can't be positive. So I would have to look at that.
Okay, thank you. And from what I've seen from our training, I haven't seen one, or maybe it's another page, but I do think, when we're dealing with unacceptable customer behavior policy, I think that's fair, but I just want to make sure from the city, and I know I'm not going to deal with this now, it might be a new business item, but I want to make sure that we have a superior customer service policy that balances this policy out. I'm speaking from the customer service industry, and there's leaders that exist in the private sector all over the world. Number one, off the top of my head, are Ritz-Carlton and Disney. Both are private companies that have superior customer service that's recognized across the whole world. And, Ritz-Carlton has a slogan, it's ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And they're noted for that. And the thing about customer service policy and superior customer service is that we're always improving it. In the private sector and hotels specifically, we're always looking at ways in which we can be better at receiving customers. And I'd love for the city of Belleville to also have that approach while also maintaining policies like this one that deal with the worst, is, of course, with the best. And I think I feel having for the staff that have to deal with vexatious or frivolous requests and different ways to deal with that. And I am positive that the way that we've gone through procedure and how this is laid out in this policy is good. And I think, as noted, it's been lifted from other policies. But as I've noted, I think what I'm going to be looking at new business is just probably at the very least to update an existing policy to make sure we have a superior customer service policy in place, and we're developing that over how long we need to do that, so that when we're working with our clients who are our customers, we do have a way that we're improving that service, and then a way that we're dealing when we're not seeing that acceptable behavior. So that's just my comments on that, but I support it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Williams. Anyone else? Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. McDonald. Can I ask who initiated this and what was the impetus for this policy? Because I don't recall it being discussed previous, and there was, I just wondered what the process was to get to this point.
Through the chair to Councillor Millette. So from time to time, we do, as I'm sure you can imagine, we deal with folks that are challenging from a customer service perspective. As stated in the report, generally that leads us to requesting some direction from the city solicitor. That's not the most productive approach from our perspective. A, it's costly, B, it's time consuming, and B, there's a lag. So we've got a customer who may be corresponding in any manner. They may be at the counter, they may be on the telephone, they may be either written or by email. Getting some direction from the city solicitor, there's a time lag, as I'm sure you can appreciate. And the city solicitor's advice to us in dealing with the handful of people that are generally regular folks that we deal with that rise to this level that we're trying to address. From my perspective anyways, the solicitor is of the opinion that we should have a policy so that there's consistency, because that's what we're striving to do, so that we're treating people in a consistent manner that's fair. What we don't want to do is have the various departments treating people, city residents, our customers, in an inconsistent manner. So maybe have one bad day and they approach a staff member in an inappropriate manner, and we come down on them in a very heavy-handed manner, or from their perspective. Whereas they come to City Hall, for instance, and they meet me, and I'm having a great day, and I treat them with kid gloves, and I send them away happy. That's not the message we want to send. We want to be very consistent in our approach. So we want to have some form, so that staff know what the expectation is, but so do the clients and customers that come into the building, so that when they're approaching us and we're approaching them, there are rules that we both know and we can both follow. Because without them, we are leaving people to their own devices, and that's not fair to either party. So it's consistency and fairness is what we're striving for.
Thank you.
Just,
Any other,
just
go ahead.
sorry, Mr. Chair. Further to that, I guess then we're not looking at this to be utilized in any way, shape, or form as a broad brush. These are very selective and very few and far between cases where this policy would have to be enacted, from just knowing and speaking with staff. I know we have frequent flyers, as we might call them, who are constantly seeming to make sport of baiting city staff and in a vexatious manner. And so just, could you explain that it probably would be a very small number or a large number per year, or?
If I can, through the chair to Councillor Millette, I would suggest it's a very small number. So the folks, and I've spoken to council on a number of occasions about parking tickets in the city of Belleville, get people very agitated. So when they come into City Hall to pay them, they're having a bad day generally. Their temperature is very high, it is what it is. We deal with those every day on the first floor. That's not what this is intended to address. This is, as you said, folks who have regular contact with city employees and or council members that are not going well consistently. They're not productive, and they're not meant to be productive. So that's, again, who we're attempting to address with this policy in an even-handed manner. It also, the policy has levels where if it's one of, for instance, corporate services staff, that staff member has to bring this instance to my attention. I then have to take it to the CAO's attention. So in that case, there are 3 checks and balances where there has to be a review of the instances in its entirety, where there's a check and balance and a review that says, yes, this rises to the level of not an efficient use of resources and frivolous or vexatious or both before any kind of measure is taken and the person, council and the person is identified and told what the measure is before anything is done. So I think it's an even-handed approach to very few instances. I think it's a very small percentage of the population that would rise to this level.
All right, thank you, Councillor Millette. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in reading the staff report, it talks about that there was some review of other municipalities. I do have a little bit of concern with I look at this more as an operational policy. At the end of the day, it's customer service is more of a staff sphere than I would say for city council. I know I've had a couple correspondents come my way, and I've just pushed those off to legal counsel to see whether they meet the criteria of defamation or libel or things of that nature. But this has more to do with the day-to-day operations of staff. And so when I read the policy, it's almost like the department head should be making the determination as to whether or not it meets the criteria, and the CAO be the appeal, and not necessarily City Council take on that judge role, if you will. Our other municipalities have it set up where if there's an appeal process, it would come directly to council.
Through the chair to Councillor Carr, the majority of them generally go to the CAO. Council is advised of any sanction that is put on someone who has triggered this policy. Very few municipalities, believe it or not, have anything of this nature. So I think I was looking at 3 or 4 that have this. Majority of them are larger municipalities. Ottawa, for instance, has a very robust, hundreds of pages of policy of this nature, where it rises to the level of restraining orders, not allowed in buildings, all of those things. They have a robust in-house legal counsel section as well. So it's something that's not at our disposal. So they don't need to. They refer it to in-house legal counsel. So we have some limitations that some of the policies that we were reviewing that we don't have available to us without going outside of City Hall. So it's a little bit unique. And generally, I think when you have a discussion with a person or you put a sanction on a person who may trigger something of the nature of this policy, I think you're going to get into a conversation where there may be some recognition of the fact that what has occurred may not be appropriate, not in all cases, because sometimes I think it is purposeful. I've had conversations with some people that I think may be subject to this policy in the future. And my opinion on some of those folks is that it won't go down that road of self-recognition and correction. And so sanctions may be warranted and they won't be accepted at face value. So it may have to go down that road, and then we may have to look at the policy. And like any policy, I think it will need to be reviewed from time to time once it's been put in place to see what works and what doesn't. And my conversation with my colleagues in other jurisdictions, that's what they do. They saw what worked and what didn't work. The one municipality that has that same provision, they use it and it works. They're a little bit bigger than us, but they don't have in-house legal counsel either.
So if I could, so the provision I'm referring to is more to do with the review of restrictions, or sorry, the appeals.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Another municipality actually refers the appeals to council?
Through the chair, yes, and it's happened, I think, once, and it was a very quick and accepted by council, the provision that was put in place, and that was the end of it.
So if I could, Mr. Chair, just one other question. So if that was the case and council was the appeal body, would that meet the parameters of a closed meeting, or would that meet the parameters of an open meeting?
Through the chair, I would have to follow up with them. I would suggest it probably went in camera.
Okay. Yeah. So, Mr. Chair, that's partly my concern, that I think that there's enough, put it this way, there's enough layers of management within our municipality of which the department head should be able to make that judgment call if there is a situation developing in their department, that the employee, the manager, we have those layers there to bring it to the director to say, we have this issue, does it meet the criteria? And then from there, I think the CEO would be the natural appellant or appeal body, just simply because it's an operational issue. I'm a little concerned about council taking on a judgment role when it has to relate to policy. It's one thing to develop it, it's certainly another thing to be part of the enforcement of it. But if you're suggesting that that's what's being done at one municipality, can I ask who or which municipality that is?
Through the chair, I'll have to get back to you just because I looked at so many
Okay.
of which one it is.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, just a comment. I appreciate Councillor Carr's perspective, but I support this 100%. I think it's necessary to deal with some members of the public, and the staff need it.
All right. Thank you, Councillor. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kelly. You know, I very strongly support the report. I think this is it's necessary at this. It's come to the time where municipalities have to take these types of actions to ensure that the orderly conduction of business of the city, both with staff but also with council, can be done appropriately, and not to spend the very scarce resources we have on what we consider to be vexatious things. Now, we will come back and we'll review this. This is the first step. It's not done. We will see some things that will have to be adjusted, like we do with many of our bylaws. But I'm supporting it. Now, I want to make clear what this is not about is eliminating an opportunity for feedback from members of the public who don't agree with the direction of the city or don't agree with some of the policy of the city. We are a free and democratic society, and everyone has the right to express their opinion. This is more about balancing things. As I said, it's not about not wanting to hear negative feedback. It's about ensuring that that negative feedback is not productive and is not offered in a sense of making things better. We currently have staff members in the city of Belleville who have to deal with extreme residents. There are situations of threats. There are situations of potential violence. There are situations that we would consider to be abusive. And I know we have a harassment policy of it, but what this policy allows us to do, it allows us to deal with it before it escalates to those situations. We can try to intercede and say, hey, this is not going in a good direction, and it allows people to be able to alter their behavior before it's too late and when we're dealing with potentially a tragic situation involving one of our staff members. You know, there have been instances of members of the public coming in with a video recording device in an attempt to threaten or to bully employees into giving them special types of treatment or to influence staff members while they're trying to do their jobs. It's common within cities. It's even more common with our emergency services, particularly members of the police, that people are recording them in some way as if try to make them feel that they, the people who work for us to protect us, are doing something wrong. We also have situations where people make voice recordings and then they try to doctor it and then be able to replay back a situation where staff members have not said anything like that, but yet it's being purported to do that. So these are important things to treat our staff with respect to ensure that they're in an environment that they can do their jobs effectively. And so this policy, the way I look at it, is mostly for staff. But when it comes to council, there are sometimes, not always, often, not very often, but there are sometimes people who are not happy with situations that the city has made decisions on, and we as elected representatives have done so. And I want to give an example of one in which I have, tried. I've received in the past email from a resident who was unhappy with the direction of the city in a certain policy. But in the email, there were a number of allegations that I would consider to be defamatory towards private residents in the city, but also members of council potentially. And I wasn't even the subject of the email. I was basically copied on the email. And I requested that individual stop emailing me correspondence any longer. I explained that I was available, that if they wished to telephone me and we could discuss what they wanted. But by including me on the email trail, it suddenly now opened me up to being called in as a witness in a defamation lawsuit. And nobody wants to be involved in that. Unfortunately, that resident refuses to honor my request, which is to not include me on those emails and to contact my office if they want to speak with me. And so this policy will allow us to deal with situations such as that and the other ones that we deal with. So, I think it's high time that we have this policy. I'll be supporting it, and I look forward to having it implemented and then making adjustments if we need to in the future.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Any other comments? Let's call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll go to 8A2, City of Belleville Transportation Committee Deputy City Clerk's Report, number DCC 2019-11, resolution that council approve the recommendations of the Transportation Committee for those items outlined in the Deputy City Clerk Report, number DCC 2019-11, City of Belleville Transportation Committee. Can we get a mover? Councillor McCaw, seconder. Councillor Thompson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 8A3, delegation of tax appeals under Section 357, 1D.1 to the Assessment Review Board. Director of Finance, Treasury's report number DF 2019-29. Resolution that pursuant to Director of Finance, Treasurer's report number DF 2019-29, a bylaw be prepared, being a bylaw to delegate tax appeal applications under Section 357 1D.1 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, C25, as amended to the Assessment Review Board in accordance with subsection 357.11 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2000, C25. You got all that as amended. Can we get a mover? Councillor Sanderson, second by Councillor Colhane. Any discussion? Councillor Thompson.
Just a question, what is sickness and extreme poverty appeal? Is that when we send out our tax notices, is this included in the tax notices going out to the individual, every homeowner, that this is available for extreme poverty and sickness? If I can ask that question?
Where do we want to go for that one? We'll go to Brandon for that.
Through the chair to Councillor Thompson. It's not like the application form, is that maybe what you're referring to? It's
Well, more just that this is available to the people, and because, you know, we know that there's people out there that have sicknesses and in extreme poverty situations, and I'm not sure they know about this situation. So more so that it's highlighted, or not highlighted, but one of the sections in the tax notice that they can appeal those.
off the top of my head, I'm not sure that it's specifically noted. I don't think that it is highlighted in the tax notices.
I'm sorry, I take back the word highlighted, but at least notice it to them so that when they open their tax bill, that they see that there is this possibility. They know that they can appeal to the city to get the seniors rebate, but I've never noticed this in the taxes. So I would, as a councillor, I would certainly like to see something in the tax notices going out, maybe not highlighting it, but at least noting that this is available to the taxpayer.
Through the chair to Councillor Thompson, that's absolutely something we can look into for the tax notices.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Anyone else? Let's call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 8A4, appointments to boards, committees, and special committees. Director Corporate Services, Clerk's Report DCS 2019-56. Applications are provided for members of council and are available on the city's website. Resolution that pursuant to the Director of Corporate Services Clerk's Report, number DCS 2019-56, appointment of members to various city committees and boards, that Patrick Curran be appointed as a citizen appointee to the Green Task Force, and that Sophie Pichette and Jennifer Lynch be appointed as citizen members to the Youth Advisory Committee, and that Councillors Sanderson, Chair, and McCaw be appointed to the Protective Services Advisory Committee, and that Robert Jakes, Belleville Urban Ward, Bruce Mackey, Thurlow Ward, Belleville Rural, and Mianna Randall, Thurlow Ward, Belleville Suburban, be appointed as the citizen members, and that John Baltutis be appointed to the citizen appointee to the Quinte Healthcare Advisory Council, and that a bylaw to amend bylaw 2019-02, that appointments bylaw be prepared for council's consideration. Can we get a mover? Mayor? Seconder? Councillor Sanderson. Any discussion? Councillor Millett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I I'm just making some comment. I will support this motion, and I will support wholeheartedly all the recommendations for appointment. I just want to make something clear at this point, however, and it's directed through you, I guess, to the mayor, because the recommendations for these considerations were made by the mayor. And I make this comment on behalf of the 5,500 people who voted to put me in this place today. I had expressed interest in chairing this, the one committee, the Protective Services Committee, taking a great interest, as I do, in fire protective services. And this is in no means, in any way, shape, or form to denigrate my colleagues who are appointed to this committee. But the mayor and I had discussions as far back as August 4th, where I had said, what are the chances I might get consideration for the new fire committee? Wherein the mayor responded, I'm good with that, Chris. We'll populate the committee all at once at a future meeting, but I'm good with recommending you. Thanks. I think I'd be a good fit. I know you'll be good. How do you feel about being chair? I think you could provide good leadership on the committee and to council. I said, I'd be honored. And then we talked about process. Now, since that time, I'm not going to get into our private discussions, but the mayor and I have discussed other matters wherein my expression of serving on this committee were brought up on a couple of occasions, and it was basically alluded to that play ball, you might get your appointment. As it came up, I'm not even a member on the committee. And I go back to 5,500 people who put me in this chair, who expect me to provide the leadership the mayor had asked and suggested that I could. And I guess in a decade of covering police and fire as a journalist in this community, with my experiences in all manner of fire protective services, from standing in a cold night when there's a fatal fire that is blazing and firefighters are taking people out of that house, to watching and reporting on the amalgamation of this municipality with Thurlow and the volunteer fire departments and the professional services, as well as 12 years sitting at that table covering this municipal council and all of the procedures that go with it. I put that expertise forward when I ran for this position. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm whinging here, I'm getting, but I expect to be dealt with fairly and with respect. And where I come from, when somebody gives you their word, that's their bond. And I received a call the other night from the mayor, and I unfortunately got it on voicemail. He asked if I wanted to discuss this before I read it in the agenda. Frankly, I didn't want to, because I don't need to hear obfuscation or excuses. But for the 5,500 people that put me in this seat, I believe I have more to serve, but for whatever reason, I'm being obstructed from doing the job that 5,500 people put me in. Thank you. But I will support the motion. This isn't out of any spite. I suspect Councillor Sanderson, now this will be his fourth committee chairing, if my count is right. Fellow rookie councillor, for the record, I don't chair any committees. But Councillor Ymca, I think, will serve adequately and ably on this committee, as will the civilian task members of the committee. But I'm sorry, enough's enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Millet. Any other comments? All right, let's call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Carried.
Actually, Mr. Chair, can I just ask you if you could just, if everyone will consent, I want to make a couple comments, because I think I need to clarify something here, if it's in order, if everyone will consent.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, just, further to Councillor Millet's comments, and I typically don't make a habit of referring to what other people mention around the table in terms of why I will vote in favor or why I won't support something. You know, there were 5 members of council who approached me to be on the committee, that in terms of the recommendations, not just one. And at the end of the day, I made a difficult decision. I could only choose 2 of the 5. That means 3 people would not be included. I made a difficult decision, which I thought was the best. Members of council are free to make an amendment to the motion if they want to bring forth their ideas. But part of the problem, I would suggest, part of the problem that maybe we should all consider around this table is that if someone wants to know, and I make the offer to have a meeting with me in order to discuss it, and they choose then not to follow up on it with me, but instead want to speak around the table here about the fact that they were left off, I would suggest that, being treated fairly and with respect is a two-way street around here. And, it's easy to cast aspersions and say, I didn't get what I wanted, and therefore I should, I'm going to support the recommendation, even though I didn't get what I wanted. Back in August when we were discussing it, absolutely, Councillor Millet was the first member of council that came to me to express interest in this committee. And at that time, I was supportive. But what has changed? Well, when I looked at all of the applicants that we had, all the members of council we had, I made the best decision that I could, understanding that it's up to council to decide on who populates the committee. And that's what we did today. And so, if Councillor Millet would like to speak with it more, my door is always open. I have not denied him a single instance where he has wanted to come in and to speak with me. At the end of the day, I think what I am tasked with doing is bringing not just what I think are the best recommendations, but the recommendations that have the best chance of being successful around this table, and that's what I did. So I appreciate everyone allowing me to add those comments. I thought that they should be responded to, and I appreciate it.
Can you go back?
Briefly, I welcome your invitation.
Councillor Millet, go ahead.
Briefly, I welcome the mayor's invitation for a frank and open discussion, and I'll take you up on that.
All right. And I think this committee is going to be in good hands with Councillor McCaw and Councillor Sanderson as the chair. We've seen the work of Councillor Sanderson on the other 3 committees you chair, and you're doing a great job, so good luck with the next one. 8A5, radio communications upgrades for coverage and interoperability. Fire Chief's Report, FES 2019-07, resolution that the 2019 capital budget be amended in the amount of $60,000, adding that the radio communications upgrades for coverage and interoperability, and that the funding source for this project be allotted as $60,000 from the Capital Levy Reserve Fund, 100%. Can we get a mover? Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Carr. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 8A6, Overnight Warming Center 2019-2020 Winter Operation, Fire Chief's Report, number FES 2019-08, resolution that pursuant to the Fire Chief's Report, number FES 2019-08, Overnight Warming Center 2019-20 Winter Operation Council approved the operation of an overnight warming center and an operating budget of $25,000 funded through the Casino Social Infrastructure Reserve Fund. Can we get a mover? Councillor Williams, seconder. Councillor Thompson. Any discussion? Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I think just in reference to the overnight warming center, I'm going to refer back to the library. When the library was initially used, I would like people to know that only 4 people qualified as homeless people to stay overnight in that shelter, to use that facility. There seems to be an understanding out there that there are many, many, many homeless people looking for shelter on any given cold night. And I don't intend to cast any kind of aspersion on anyone. I just want the public to know that only 4 people stayed the night in that facility, that when the, pardon me, when the people who dropped in and had coffee visited, and they were welcome, but again, 4 people. I just want to make that known.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to refer back to the library when we had it, and then we switched locations. So the nights that the -15 isn't declared, at the library, there was nights when people showed up at the library. This center at the church, are they going to have, is it not going to be allowed to have those people in if it's not declared -15? Or what's going to be the setup? So, because we know there's going to be nights it's going to be -10, so is the church available, or is it just for the -15?
We'll go to the fire chief.
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Thompson. We have to establish a criteria for staffing purposes, and so we try to make the call usually a day in advance, looking at the forecast. Arranging staff is quite a task for corporate services. They arrange the security. So we've arranged with the church, they understand that they're not going to be utilizing their staff or their volunteers, that we are going to staff this facility. So we need some advance notice to do that. So there's a sandwich board set up. You may all remember last winter. So when the sandwich board is out, basically the center is open, and we use our social media and our city website to try to get the message out as best we can. And that's how we plan to operate it this year.
And, you know, I know it when we had it at the library, and there was nights we only had 1 or 2. There was nights there was 7 or 8 or 10 people, may not have all stayed the night. But my concern is that, and we can't provide for every night of the year. I'm concerned about where they're going to go on those nights where it's not declared 15. But I realize our overnight warming center is only available for that -15. And Grace Inn is not going to be available because they own a maximum of 23. So I think I would certainly like us to make sure we monitor the situation at that church if we can, to see whether there's people showing up on maybe -10 nights and having a report come back, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCaw. Oh, sorry, we'll go.
Thank you, through you. I just wanted to reference the people that showed up at the library. I went to the library the night there was a demonstration. There were 5 people there, and none of them were in need of shelter. At least I spoke to them all. Just pointing that out to Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair, and kudos to the Victoria Avenue Baptist Church for putting themselves forward to host this. I think that's great. When we have community operations and community churches, I know that the Bridge Street Inn from the Cold is going to be shut down also for this month in December, as they are upgrading their kitchen. I think that's correct. Is Hastings County picking up, until we have Grace Inn open, are they picking up the slack on that, until we have, or is this kind of where, so I know we don't have that program and we have this picking up where we had the warming center last year, and just following Councillor Thompson's comments on people who need that, is Hastings County the one that right now is picking up the slack and making sure they're taking care of people who need shelter?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Williams. There is the Salvation Army, I believe, announced this past weekend that they are planning to run the dinner program from 6 to 8:30. That's why the warming center operates from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. And as has been alluded to, Grace Inn plans to be up and operating, which will provide a significant number of true bed spaces. Our overnight warming center is just a warming center. We don't provide bed spaces or food, although people do volunteer and bring that kind of food in. Our contract with Hastings County involves what we call emergency sheltering. So that would be on a case-by-case basis, and we contact Hastings County, and then they have staff who come out and arrange for a temporary shelter on a very short-term basis on a case-by-case basis, not for a group per se.
Okay, thank you. And just last question if I can, Mr. Chair. What is meant by, I know there's a phrase here, but there may be occasions where capacity limits and interpersonal conflicts restrict access to the shelter. Can you go over that phrase for me, what that means?
Yes, I tried to choose words carefully, but I can tell you I got a call from Grace Inn on Friday when they read the agenda concerned, and what was meant by the interpersonal conflicts is not between staff and patrons or clients, but often clients, marginalized clients that we may be dealing with, often between themselves, there is interpersonal conflict, and there can be even to the tune of restraining orders and other court orders. So there could be cases where simply because one person is, say, at Grace Inn, but because of a restraining order issued, the other person cannot come into that facility. So that would offer this person the spatial separation to still come in from the cold.
Okay, thank you. And I think that we want to offer a safe environment for everyone, and definitely through all agencies. So thank you very much. I think this is a great initiative.
All right, thank you. Councilor Millette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to whomever, I guess, can answer this question. The funding of this, what does this do to our commitment to the Grace Inn just at this stage?
We'll go to Deputy Treasurer. Brendan?
Through the chair to Councillor Millette, that funding is still committed or segregated. This is funding in addition to when we looked at the funding. We haven't identified or provided any direction to reduce it at this time, but as you know, it's still being withheld at the moment.
Okay, further to that question, can anybody provide any insight as to when we might be forwarding that money on to Grace Inn? I know it was being handled through our grants committee. We had the whole process where we were concerned about their inclusiveness, and now I'm just wondering what's the mechanism that will free up that money and when that might be?
Yeah, thank you. I can start off by answering Councillor Millette's question. As soon as they open, the funds will be made available to them. You know, I've offered to bring them the check, have them come and pick it up. We can mail it to them. Just with the concerns that not just council but the community has had in terms of previous announced dates for opening and them not occurring. One of the conditions was that they be open. So as soon as they open, the check will be available for them and they can pick it up how they want. Thank you, Mr. Chair. In terms of my comments for this, I'm going to support this. I think it's great. I want to first by asking the fire chief, who is dealing with this by virtue of being our emergency management coordinator. Was this service, this overnight warming center service, provided by the city of Belleville in the past?
Previous to the last winter season, no, it was not.
Yeah. So this is this is a big step forward. Prior to the 2019 winter, and we had to kind of scramble and no excuses, but there were commitments that Grace Inn would be open before the snow flew in the fall of 2018. We had an election. We had a new council take office. Unfortunately, nothing had really been done with that. And then in January, this council took that on, and we scrambled to create an overnight warming council policy, to fund it, to set it up, to try a little bit. As Councillor Culhane has said, for the limited amount of times that we opened it in 2019, we had about an average of 4 individuals a night that used the facility. There were some that came in and and I don't say socialize, but they were there in a social matter, and then they went to their where they were staying in terms of their housing. This year, last year, those costs for the city of Belleville, both at the library and at the transit terminal, were approximately $12,000. So this year, we're looking at the whole winter season, which looks like it started early, judged on the weather, but we're more than doubling the amount that we had made available. And we learned a lot last year in providing a service such as this, and we learned that people who are in need of an overnight warming center also present some challenges to us, and the importance of having a security on site and having people who can come help assess them is going to be very, very important. We are hoping that Grace Inn will open, as they've now talked about, in terms of early December. But we do know that from their model that if they are to be at a position of capacity, that we would continue to have a need. So this warming center could help provide that capacity. We also know that not everyone will be eligible to use the Grace Inn shelter, and so we needed to have a facility in our community that we have. And thank goodness this year, with the renovations that are going on at the transit terminal, that the Victoria Avenue Church has made themselves available. The last thing I want to say is just simply the huge learning curve we've all had, certainly this term, but in my discussions with Hastings County, who are contracted to provide housing service for the city of Belleville, including emergency housing service. And I want to reiterate that anyone who finds themselves homeless, whether it be in the winter or it be any other time of the year, that we have programs and resources so that nobody should be homeless. That if someone presented themselves today with nowhere to stay and they did not know, that we have emergency services in place to deal with them. Every single individual that are within the city of Belleville. Sometimes those individuals don't want to take advantage of the support that Hastings County provides, and we understand. I can honestly tell you that when the weather turned cold last year in January, as we were trying to get up to speed on the variety of issues, when the concern about people sleeping outside presented itself, I was literally afraid of turning the radio on in the morning, lest I would hear that some unfortunate situation happened that ended up being a travesty or a tragedy. And we scrambled. And what that scrambling allowed us to do was not just open the center, but also provide a lot more information to all of us about how there are many causes for people who are homeless. I believe the population is growing. We see higher needs. On a day that it is minus 15 or minus 20 or minus 25, it doesn't matter why. We need to be able to deal with those people. I feel good about the work that this council is doing to address it, and I'll be supporting the resolution. Thank you.
Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I just want to put out the number for after 4:30 when the office is closed. It's 1-866-414-0300. And I believe, I'll just go through you to the Chief, if I may. I believe that all of our emergency services would be aware of that number, Chief.
Yes, through the chair.
And would make sure that people got it, who looked for it, just to let people know that the needs have been met for many years. Things are changing, and I believe we're doing our best to cope with them. But that number is always answered, and options are always offered.
Thank you, Councillor. I got a question for the fire chief. In the background report, it says the center is to be activated when the current or forecasted temperatures are minus 15, before wind chill, or minus 20 degrees Celsius with the wind chill. The second option is in place of a windy day and it's really cold, and if it's minus 15 with the wind, the overnight warming center can be activated. My question is, I was out this morning at 4:30 a.m., it was minus 8. I don't know if I'd want to be outside at 4:30 in the morning at minus 8. Why we set at minus 15 as the number?
Through the chair to the chair. We followed the extreme cold alert that Environment Canada and the Weather Network used for our region. So an example, up at Nunavut, extreme cold alert is like -40 because those people are more acclimatized to the colder temperatures. So when we reached out to other municipalities who operate warming centers and overnight shelters, they had to come up with some criteria of when to establish the warming center. And it's always a challenge, and certainly with council's approval, those numbers could be adjusted, but we had to establish a criteria that would allow us the time to line up staff. Otherwise, we would possibly be open every night. And again, looking at our learning curve, as His Worship mentioned earlier, we're able to really get some good numbers based upon last year's experience. And that tells us that, we're not talking about dozens of people that need help every day. The actual clients that would come into the warming center, I know I went down most nights it was activated and had conversations with some of them during the course of the night, and they were happy with that it was open on that night. And I even asked that very question to them: at what temperature do you find it more uncomfortable? And really, when you look at the wind chill index, these are when you get to -15, -20, that's when there's damage to exposed skin after a fairly short period of time, and hypothermia risk rises dramatically at the -15 to -20 level. And I believe that's why cities like Toronto and Calgary established these numbers. So it's just a number that helps guide staff on when to activate. And there were times last winter where the forecast said it wouldn't get to -15, and it came into a Friday, and we have to make a decision for the entire weekend on a Friday, as an example. And lo and behold, the weatherman was a little bit off, and it got a whole lot colder on the weekend. And I can tell you that my phone lit up like a Christmas tree about why wasn't it activated. And we have to go upon our best guesstimate and the information we have at the time.
All right, thank you, Fire Chief. Any more discussion? All those, Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just briefly, I'm going to support it. Obviously, it's good that we have an opportunity to actually make a decision on this. Last year, it was all implemented rather rapidly because of the weather. The Victoria Avenue Baptist Church, though, really have to say thank you for stepping up and offering their facility. The other thing that I just want to touch on, and the Fire Chief mentioned about some people and compatibility, we also need to keep in mind that not everyone would choose to use the shelter, so when Grace Inn does open, because of the rules. In my other line of work, I see it all the time. They don't like the rules of the house, so therefore they don't want to stay there. And so that could create some vacancies there as well. I think when we look at the options, we have emergency housing with Hastings County, as it was well pointed out. We have the shelter that will be up and running. And then with the warming center, we have all kinds of options in terms of getting out of the cold. And so those who then can make a choice on how they would like to spend the night is available. So I think we've definitely, through this, now covered our bases in its entirety, and it's just a matter, as eloquently put, Councillor Culhane mentioned, is getting the message out that the facilities are actually there. But there are going to be people that won't choose Grace Inn simply because they don't like the rules.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Let's call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks very much, too. Just to echo what Councillor Carr said, to the Victoria Avenue Baptist Church for that opportunity. Consent items, 8B. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. And we'll ask each councillor. Councillor Culhane. Thank you. Councillor Williams.
8B7, sir.
8B7. Councillor Sanderson. 8B7. Councillor Millette.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Panchuk.
No, thank you.
Councillor Carr.
No, thank you.
Councillor McCaw. And Councillor Thompson.
No, thank you.
Thank you. So we've got the two. So do we deal with that first? That the following agenda items be approved with the exception of items 8B7. Can we get a mover? Councillor McCaw, seconder. Councillor Millette. All those, we'll go to 8B7. Can we get it carried? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We're going to go to 8B7. And it is the City of Belleville Grant Committee, Director of Finance Treasurer's Report, number DF 2019-30. Resolution that council approve the recommendations of the Grant Committee for those applications outlined in the Director of Finance Treasury's Report, number DF 2019-30, City of Belleville Grant Committee. Can we get a mover?
Just point of order, Mr. Chair, just can you remove the third one and just approve the first two?
I thought he said 8B7.
Yeah, sorry, but 4.1, 4.2, and if you can vote on 4.3 separately.
Oh, okay. So where do you want me to go? What do you want me to say?
We're just going to consider items 4.1 and 4.2. He's got a conflict on 4.3.
Okay, so where am I going there? Where is it? Appreciate that. You can take mine and find it, okay? So where are we, 4.3?
So we're going to pull that one. So we're going to deal with 4.1 and 2, so you get a mover.
Okay, let's go to 4.1. Can we get a mover?
4.1 and 2.
And 4.2. Councillor Williams, Councillor Millet, any discussion? All those in favor? Approved. Now where are we going? Okay, we're going to go to 4.3, Sylvain Ruche Memorial Foundation Hockey Tournament. It's coming up on the 29th and 30th of the new year. Request use of municipally owned facility to waive the rental fee for ice times. The recommendation that the City of Belleville Grant Committee approve the request from the Sylvain Ruche Memorial Foundation Hockey Tournament and forward the recommendation to Belleville City Council for further consideration. This request represents a municipal resource cost to the city in the amount of $4,992 plus HST. Can we get a mover? Councillor Sanderson, seconder. Councillor McCaw, any discussion? Councillor Sanderson.
Well, the reason I asked to have it pulled was I just had a question through the chair for finance. How much is left in the grant committee fund once we've agreed to these activities?
Brendan?
Yep. Through the chair to Councillor Sanderson. After the allocations are done, there'll be about $10,000 left in the grant committee for the resources available.
Okay, good, thank you. It normally appears on the report, and I didn't see it there this time. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sanderson, any other comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, so that's where I'm going right here. All right, Councillor Williams is back. 8C, Council Information Matters. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and Council shall consider such items individually. We'll go to Councillor Culhane. You want to pull any?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 8C4A and B, please.
All right, Councillor Williams.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sanderson.
8C2.
Thank you. Councillor Millet.
Councillor Cohen, did you pull 8B or 8C4B, did you? I did, okay, yeah, I'm in on B too.
All right, thank you. Mayor Panchuk.
No, thank you.
Councillor Carr.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly McCaw. Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
One's already been pulled, 8C4B.
All right, thank you. All right, that the following agenda items be received, save, and accept items 8C2, 8C4A, 8C4B. Can we get a mover? Councillor Carr, seconder. Councillor Collane. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we're going to go to 8C2, Economic and Destination Development Committee minutes. Can we get a mover? Councillor Carr, seconder. Councillor Millet. Any discussion? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Chair. Through yourself, I see that Manager Post is with us, so if I could ask her to come to the mic.
Manager Post.
I had some questions at last council that I was able to get partial responses to, but I've also got a question for this one as well. But last meeting, if you'll recall, I asked questions regarding the July 4th minutes, and it was specifically related to Gail Walker. And so the questions were, in what capacity is Gail Walker participating, and is she being paid, and if so, how much, and where was the money coming from? And then what process was used to hire the external consultant? And then last was, does Gail Walker have any connection with any member of the EDC? So I've come to find out that Gail was hired as a consultant to run the strategic plan, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So how much was she paid? Do you have that information?
Through the chair to Councillor Sanderson. We originally contracted Gail $5,000 for managing the strategic planning sessions, an additional $5,000 for the preparation of the reports. So for a total cost of $10,000 for the strategic planning sessions. Through the process, it was identified that one additional session was required to complete the strategic plan for the Economic and Destination Development Committee. So an additional $2,500 was billed for that.
Okay, thank you. What process was used to hire the external consultant?
We did follow the purchasing policy, and it was suggested to us that there'd be some benefit to using the same consultant that prepared the strategic plan for the Downtown Belleville Improvement Association. So we approached that consultant to complete the strategic plan.
Okay, so do we or do we not have a hiring policy when we hire external consultants?
We used the policy that allowed us to approach a vendor at the $5,000 mark.
I thought you said you spent $12,000.
Initially,
it was 5 and 5, right?
It was 5 and 5, yes.
That's 10.
Yes. Initially, we had the consultant come in, run the program, and then determined at a later date that we wanted that consultant to do the reporting.
Okay, so who brought the consultant to your attention?
The chair suggested the consultant.
So, Councillor Williams?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, we spent $12,500 on a consultant.
Yes.
So that's roughly about $600 an hour, because I think it was 19 hours worth of work that they did. So, trust me, the math works.
Yep.
So that's about $600 an hour to put together a strat plan, which basically $600, so that's like 2 months' rent for one of the pop-up shops, right?
That's correct.
Seems to me like, yeah, fair enough. It seems to me like a terrible waste of money, considering we could have probably done it in-house. And I'm really troubled that Councillor Williams, who here 2 weeks ago said he didn't know the individual on a personal basis, that he brought the name forward. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Sanderson, it's my understanding that Councillor William had dealt with this individual through the BDIA strategic planning process, felt that was a valuable process, and subsequently recommended this consultant.
I've got no more questions. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Williams?
And I don't mind commenting on that. I think, first of all, I want to thank the committee. I know there's several councillors here. We put 19 hours into a strategic plan, and I'm very satisfied, and I know the committee was at the end of it, to finish that plan. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of work for a committee to put into a strategic plan. There's not many committees that have a strategic plan in the city. We haven't finished our strategic plan, so it was great that we could do that, and I think council hopefully will see that by the end of December. I think we're just trying to get a meeting scheduled early December at this point to bring that forth, so I think that was really good. I just want to, I'm not sure where my colleague is going with this. Seems to be there's some allegations, and I would suggest, as before, that if he has any concerns, he can see me in between meetings and not bring this up if it, you know, again, unless it's a big deal. But to me, we followed procedure. Our recommendation was not something that we were trying to direct staff. When it came to staff, they make decisions. So I came out of, as of a lot of other members from the BDIA, we just had an incredible strategic plan, and I've done strategic plans for years, and it was incredible because the strategic plan, as we've talked about before, came with measurables and tactics. So that was a recommendation to say, it's up to you to make that decision. They have a budget. However, here's something we just finished if you'd like to look at that. So to suggest that there's any other hanky-panky going on, none of that's happening. There is no direction of staff. Staff are more than capable, and they follow policies that come from the city. To state that we could have done this in-house, I disagree. This department for economic development is missing staff right now. We just had a BRE committee meeting the first time in 3-4 months because we don't have the staff resources. I think these staff are putting more than enough time to do the things they can, but do not have the staff to do the things they can't. That has been apparent, and this strategic plan was meant to give this staff ample resources to do the job, which is to develop revenue and jobs and economic development and tourism and living and whatever else for this city, so we're prosperous and we're moving forward. So we did that in the best possible, and I commend staff for doing the work they've done. I'm very happy with the work that's been done by Ms. Walker. There has been no relationships, there's been no, again, like I said, anything vexatious about this process. It's been handled very professionally, and I commend staff for the work they've done and the committee for the work they've done. So thank you very much, and we look forward to presenting council with this plan. That's a good one, and hopefully we can move forward. Thanks,
All right,
sir.
thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Colhane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Councillor Williams. Actually, we're not finished. I sent an email to the mayor, and I believe to the other members of council, that the end result of the entire process, and I am a member of that committee, I don't believe I've missed any meetings, but when your background is not tourism or business, it's a different process, and I have questions. I had questions. You were present. I asked those questions. I asked Ms. Walker to give me the papers that we had done the summaries on, and was told that the process is closed and private. And so, no, it isn't. Strategic planning is public. We do our city strategic planning on TV. I don't believe the process is finished. To the best of my understanding, it's not finished until the mayor has decided whether we should have a meeting to discuss the process and see if anyone has questions. Or at this point in time, I don't feel as a member that the process is completely completed.
Thank you, Councillor Colhane. Any other comments? I just wanted to make a comment about the committee. Was one of the members too. I think it's the right thing to do is to thank the volunteers that committed that 19 or 20 hours and really made a commitment. There was a lot of talent at the table over those sessions, and I look forward to the final report to see what it's going to bring and some of the planning potentially for the city as things move forward, because there was some really great ideas there, and let's hope it's going to be implemented and go from there. Thank you. Any other comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next, we're going to 8C4, and request support of the following letters, resolutions. 8C4A, requests the province work with current building sector groups and provide evidence-based justification that the new delegated administrative authority is necessary prior to any legislative changes to the Building Code Act. October 28, 2019, resolution from the town of Prescott. Can we vote on these together? Okay, can we get a mover? Councillor Culhane, seconder. Councillor Millet, any discussion? Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to point out, as far as I'm concerned, this province, if not this country, is drowning in hierarchy and levels of hierarchy, and this is a request from the town of Prescott to oppose the government's intention to ask municipalities to collect a tax on their behalf to create a new delegated administrative authority to deliver services that have historically have been the responsibility of the Ontario government. There's no need to create more hierarchy or to create another provincial tax that the city should collect and spend. I support the application from the town of Prescott to send their objection to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and indeed to all Ontario municipalities for their consideration. I think we really need to get behind this. Thank you.
All right, thanks, sir. Councillor Culhane. Any other comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 8C4B, requests the province not implement any additional cuts to the Legal Aid Ontario budget and that they reinvest in the legal aid and clinic systems. October 17th, 2019 resolution from Niagara Region. Can we get a mover? Councillor Culhane, seconder. Councillor Thompson, any discussion? Councillor Millet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be supporting this motion, and I congratulate Niagara Region Council for bringing it forward. This is a serious issue, and this issue is related to proposed cuts to Legal Aid Ontario budget. We've seen an erosion, a dangerous erosion. Ask any defense lawyer, ask any public service lawyer, Michelle Leering, executive director at the CALC, the Community and Advocacy and Legal Center. It used to be the Hastings County Legal Services. Everybody's changing their names lately. They're under the gun. Everybody is, from criminal law, legal aid, to representative legal services for those who can't afford it. There was a story in the Intelligencer last month quoting Michelle Leering, who's the executive director, saying that it would be wonderful to be able to gather information. This is about an upcoming meeting that they're holding from stakeholders on this. But the impact itself is some people are being unnecessarily incarcerated because they can't get enough legal advice at bail hearings, resulting in even more severe overcrowding at Quinte Detention Center. The impacts of reduction of legal services is far-reaching in this community. Ask our police services. This is putting more people at risk in the community because there isn't fair representation. Some of the people that should be having legal representation can't get it. It's not serving anyone in any way, shape, or form in the system other than to save the bottom line at Queen's Park. I'm going to wholeheartedly support Niagara Region. Legal aid clinics, they do, I work with them on a regular basis at landlord and tenant hearings, and I can tell you the work they do for very little money in representing these people is amazing. And to see that their budgets are being slashed simply to address a bottom line need is absolutely uncalled for. So I'll be supporting this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Millet. Any other comments? Councillor Thompson.
I'm just going to, I know Councillor Culhane and Councillor Millet, I'm just going to veto their comments because, or Councillor Millet's anyways, that the legal system is too expensive for some of these people to go out and hire lawyers. And if they don't have the assistance, these people get caught in a situation where they're not getting the right representation. And by cutting this funding would be disaster to a number of people, so.
Thank you for your thoughts, Councillor Thompson. Any other comments? All right, let's call for the vote. All those. Councillor Culhane.
Thank you.
I apologize about that. Sorry.
Do you? Accepted. I just want to further point out, Councillor Thompson, just for the public, that the province cut 70 million from the Legal Aid Ontario budget in 2019, and 14.5 million of that was cut from the legal clinic system, and they're proposing to cut another 17.3 million. Attacking the most vulnerable, people who need help with landlord-tenant particularly, disability support appeals, pension appeals, WSIB assistance, refugee assistance, migrant worker support, human rights laws, power of attorney, and wills and estates for low-income seniors. Attacking the most vulnerable does not put this government in a good light, and I absolutely support Niagara Region's request. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Culhane. Any other further comments? You're good. Okay. Thank you. All those in favor? Approved. Okay, we're going to go down to rise and report. Can we get a motion? Mover, Councillor McCaw, seconder by Councillor Carr. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kelly. We'll move on to bylaws, and first reading of bylaws, and I'll read out the numbers. Bylaw 2019-198, -199, -200, 201, 202, 203, 204, 205, 206, 207, and 208. Can I get mover and a seconder for first reading? Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Millet. All in favor? It's carried. Second reading of bylaws number 2019-169, and that bylaw is to amend bylaw number 2017-156, a bylaw to regulate the operation of all-terrain vehicles on municipal highways within the city of Belleville, as well as bylaws number 2019-198, 199, 200, 201, 202, 203, 204, 205, 206, 207, and 208. Let's get them on the floor. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Any discussion on those bylaws? So the only thing I will point out is that we had bylaw number 2019, the all-terrain vehicle bylaw, was tabled earlier this year under first reading, and so we're bringing it back on second and third reading. And I'll just ask the Director of Corporate Services, Mr. McDonald, did we receive any feedback from the public in terms of any comments or concerns about that?
Through the chair to the chair and all of council, through the website for an extended period of time, we received no comments.
Okay, so I take that as people are generally satisfied. So we'll bring in this new bylaw and we'll see how that goes. No other discussion. I will call the question on all those bylaws. All in favor? It's carried. And third and final reading of bylaw number 2019-169, 198, 199, 200, 201, 202, 203, 204, 205, 206, 207, and 208. Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Kelly. All in favor? It's carried. New business. Councillor Carr.
Thank you. I have two items, actually. The first one pertains to the fact that back when we hired the Integrity Commissioner, there was suggestion that there would be some training that would occur following that, and we haven't had any training. We know the Integrity Commissioner that we hired holds this role at 44 other municipalities, and from my perspective, I think it would be important, given recent events, that we have the Integrity Commissioner come provide us training. Also, I would like to see some feedback in terms of what other municipalities do and how they handle reports, how they vote on reports, and then that we actually then establish a process that is well laid out. I think the first process here, we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants a little bit, simply because it was the first, and we hadn't had any formal training from the Integrity Commissioner. This is a new process in and of itself across the province. I've done just some anecdotal research. Municipalities vary in very ways how they handle these. So I think we need to get some education on that, listen to his expertise, and then come up with a policy that's clearly laid out going forward. So,
which types of policy, how we deal with it in open session, or the training part of it? 'Cause I think
no,
there may
so
be two items there.
the training, I think, is imperative. We need to have that. But given what's occurred more recently, I think we need to develop a policy as to when reports are released, how they're voted upon. Some municipalities do all their voting out here. Some municipalities did what we did. I'd like to get an idea from the Integrity Commissioner, because he does represent 44 of these. What's the consensus? No different than what we've done with our policy on unacceptable customer behavior. We need to look at what other municipalities do, what their practices are. Some are a little bit farther along than we are, but simply we need to come up with a process that's clear, approved by council, and clearly written.
Well, I would say that, you know, the process we followed with the last one is how I am anticipating we'll deal with them in the future. If there is a two-part process, as happened the last one, where there is a report that the Integrity Commissioner refers to closed session, that resolutions directing or a motion to direct staff for the resolution on the floor would occur. If it is simply a one part where the report is made public, it will be made public under correspondence again, as we've done it. I can tell you, Councillor Carr, that there was a second complaint filed against me on a related issue that the Integrity Commissioner is dealing with. I think it'll be done very, very quickly. I understand that we've received multiple complaints regarding Councillor Williams, I believe. You've gotten some. Have you been notified of those yet?
Through the chair, I don't know.
Have you been notified of those yet?
Well, I don't think that, point of order, I don't think that's
It's not a point of
a
order, it's a
public
question.
document.
It's a yes or no
Well,
question.
I'm not answering that question.
Okay. Well, we've got another one from there. We may have more. So it is something that we will be dealing with in the coming weeks and months. And again, if the Integrity Commissioner refers us a report that is to be made public in open session, we will do it under correspondence. And if it is a two-part process, like last time, we'll deal with it in a similar way. But the training portion of it, I agree with you. I think it's good. You know, again, the challenge is for us, our staff are literally inundated. Like, if you take a look at all the work that we've created since we've taken office, there are a number of open items that we're still waiting for staff to come back with reports. Part of my concern here is that the customer bylaw we had today took an additional month for Director McDonald to bring forward, only because he was dealing with some of the Integrity Commissioner items. So, you know, we can reach out to the IC and ask him if he's available for some training, but I would suggest that all members of council come up with some questions with respect to that we want them to cover off when they're here, and then we'll go with that.
So can I anticipate that invitation will come sooner rather than later?
Well, again, it's going to depend on the clerk's workload as well as Mr. Fleming's. Mr. McDonald, how would you suggest that we handle? I think Councillor Carr has a good idea, and we'll bring it. How would you suggest that we deal with it in terms of coming up with the items that we want to receive some dialogue with the Integrity Commissioner on?
Through the chair to all of council and Councillor Carr, certainly Councillor Carr is correct. Part of the proposal from Mr. Fleming and Cunningham Swan was included a training portion. I know that he is in that role, very busy across the province, and has been doing training for some municipalities. Certainly, I think it is warranted that we reach out to him and request that he come and provide some training. I would suggest that it probably would be a good idea for councillors to provide any items that they would like to see addressed by Mr. Fleming to me in writing, so that I can provide them to him in advance, so that he can obviously address those concerns. And I will reach out to him and seek some dates. I would suggest as we race towards the new year with capital budget being capital budget in the fall here coming up, and an operating budget in the new year, it probably will be a challenge to do it before year's end, but I'll certainly reach out to him. I can reach out to him tomorrow and seek dates.
Okay, so that was the first thing?
Yeah, so no, that's great. And if what you say is true, then I think all the more reason that he pay us a visit sooner rather than later. The other thing I wanted to touch on, it's kind of a serious matter, actually. You know, I've been in this place closing on 8 years, so I've got a little bit of experience. Both, and we're well into the fourth quarter of 2019. Both 2017 and 18 fiscal years have been closed off. Council's approved the audited financial statements for both of those fiscal years. The city regularly receives Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act requests, and these being administrative in nature are addressed by staff. And I know that the city clerk, that is his life here sometimes dealing with those. I asked the city clerk just a little while ago if these Ymca, that's an acronym requests, would go to a committee of council, and he described that action as unusual. Yet on August 16th, 2019, the Finance Committee meeting, a Ymca request was introduced and the following motion was passed. And these are public documents that anybody can receive and ask for the Finance Committee minutes. That the Finance Department conduct a compliance audit on travel expenses for Mark Fleur, Director of Recreation, Culture and Community Services, for the years 2017 and 2018.
Can I just pause for 1 second? Mr. McDonald, can I just consult with you for a moment, please? Councillor Sanderson, could you join us for a moment, please? Okay, I just trying to make sure that we step properly with this in terms of identifiable individuals. And so the information you have isn't entirely correct, Councillor Carr. The committee did not deal with an Ymca request. We dealt with information that was determined as a result of an Ymca request and a complaint that had been made to the city. So that's that process.
Complaint, could you clarify the complaint?
I can ask Councillor Sanderson, who's the chair of the committee, if you just want to have a seat. Well, Councillor Sanderson, we'll get you to rise, and if you can.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So the complaint that came to the Finance Committee was to conduct a compliance audit. So one of the roles and responsibilities of the Finance Committee is to conduct periodic compliance audits. So the complaint that came forward, as the mayor said, had in its background information that was garnered through an Ymca, but the actual complaint or the request on the committee wasn't really a complaint as much as it was a request, was to conduct a compliance audit. So it was brought to committee, it was dealt with in committee, and that's how it was handled.
And I'm a little uncomfortable with this coming up under new business under open session, because I think that if you're looking for information, Councillor Carr, on this, that certainly you can go to the CAO, or you can go to the chair of the committee, or the director of finance who administers the work of that committee. You know, again, this is part of the issue that we are dealing with here in a variety of formats. This is not a helpful way in which to do it. Certainly you have the right to do so, But I don't think it is helpful to furthering the business of the city. If you have a concern about an employee, as we discussed a few weeks ago, your obligation and your responsibility is to go to the CAO and to discuss it with them for resolution. I don't think it's appropriate to do it in open session, but nonetheless, it is your right. And so if you have anything else you want to deal with it, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your advice, but I'll lean on my experience this time around. The issue is, and I'll leave the rest for those to investigate, but the fact of the matter is we have a citizen making an Ymca request, and that's how it's written in the agenda. I've got the agenda here, and it's an Ymca request. And from there was discussion, a motion made, and then a selection to review the finances of a senior manager, 2 years removed, 17 and 18 years, on a previous policy that no longer exists. Now, I appreciate the fact that the Finance Committee has the ability to do compliance audits, and I agree. But I don't think it's the committee's place to be selecting individual staff members and running compliance audits. Under the checks and balances that we have with travel policy, for example, it's very clear that there's a delegated authority of the CAO and the treasurer, and they sign off on those. And they're saying that they are accurate and correct. Now, if the Finance Committee would like to do an audit of a department, certainly you could say, give me 10 random travel expenses, no names, to ensure that there's compliance. But that's not what's happened here. And so my concern is the fact that we have a committee who is specifically targeting individual staff members, okay, and asking for a review of previous travel expenses. And I would say that that's not what a committee should be doing. We don't take on an administrative role with the city. The Municipal Act is very clear what lane we're supposed to be in. And the checks and balances that occur have to go to the administration side of the world. And they're the ones to make sure that things are signed off and things are appropriate. And when they're not, they have the means to deal with it. Our job is to say, do we have a policy and is it being applied properly? We asked the same question not too long ago in the previous council related to the hiring committee. We were told you cannot look at any specific files, but you're more than welcome to ask the HR department to do an audit of a particular selection process, and we will tell you whether there are any compliance or non-compliance issues. So again, it's not about the individual, but here it is. And so I'm just raising it as a concern that this is not an area we should be going down. These are all public documents. So I'm not talking out of school here. The fact of the matter is we have to get ourselves in the right lane, and we have to follow what the Municipal Act says. I agree, let's do all kinds of compliance audits on a lot of things. You know, in my world we do random samples on all kinds of things, but individuals aren't identified, because the whole point is if there's a gap in the policy, or if there's a gap in terms of how the policy is being implemented, then that's partly managers' jobs to bring it to our attention. And if it's a policy of council that we have to tighten up, which we did with the travel policy. When you look at the first one from 2008, it was rudimentary, there wasn't enough checks and balances. It was very clear that it was a problem on many fronts. But I would hate to take a guess of how many staff members use that policy to travel. And if we were to actually do an audit, there's probably a fairly good chance that a lot of those staff wouldn't comply, simply because the process was rudimentary. The fact that we tightened it up, staff brought it to our attention, the finance department brought it forward, said we need to tighten it up, we need to make sure the checks and balances are there, and we did. And that's the purpose of a compliance audit. But simply to pull a particular travel claims from a senior manager for 17 and 18 under a previous policy, which started from a private resident who basically has nothing better to do. I'm sorry, but we shouldn't be taking directions from private residents to start a hunt, if you will, to see if there's a problem with a director's travel. He reports to the CAO, and that's where that responsibility should lie. So I'm going to raise that as a concern. Hopefully that's the last we see of it.
All right, thank you, Councillor Carr. Anyone else for new business? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Worship. And as I brought up under reports in A1, the unacceptable customer behavior policy, as I'd already noted, I think a yin to our yang would be having a superior customer service policy developed. So I know that the clerk already answered and said he wasn't sure on a policy. So under new business, if we do not already have a customer service policy, I'd like a staff report to develop a superior customer service policy. We have many municipalities that have these already. I know that the municipality of Parry Sound, for instance, has a customer service manual that's been developed over a policy. So if we do not already have a policy, if we can have one, a superior customer service policy developed that would look at ways in which we can enrich and heighten our customer service as a city to all our residents, and really look at really the best ways that not only other municipalities are doing it, but also some of the private sector, because I think that's important. I know that we noted we do want to look at our customers that are more vexatious and we have a problem with in a certain way, but at the same time, we want to make sure we're treating our constituents as best customers.
Okay, perfect. Can I ask the clerk, who in the city would we task with developing a customer service policy for us? I'll come right back to you, Councillor Williams.
To the chair, I can tell you we'd likely, from my department, direct the memo to the CAO and ask him to direct it. It would likely go to HR, just because it's an all-staff policy related to customer service, but that's just off the top of my head.
Okay, so Councillor Williams, I know that the CEO is already tasked with our strategic planning process, and we are looking at getting it back up and going with our staff changes. I think I'm a little leery of just piling on additional. Let's get through the strategic planning process. I think it'll refer to customer service in there. We've already spoken about it during the sessions we had in the late summer and the fall. But I think that as soon as that is completed, then a customer service policy consistent with the strategic planning would be in order.
Well, I would state we could probably have it on the list. I'm not thinking we're going to have this done tomorrow. All due respect to the CAO's office.
We have a fairly
yes,
big backlog.
And I know that what happens normally when we're asked for staff reports, they go on a list.
Yeah.
I'm going to respect that process. And that was my second. Thank you, because that was my second point of new business today. Strategic plan. Are we getting going? I know that Mr. Bove is anxious to get back to that. What I would request is it goes on the list, and I do think that it'll end up in the strategic planning process. But my point would be a superior customer service. So looking at a more advanced. Something that we could present to the public and to just balance that with the unacceptable policy we've already approved.
CEO Bove, do you want to say a couple words just about where we are with strategic planning and how we're going to resurrect our efforts on that?
Through His Worship to Council, thank you. I agree with what Councillor Williams was saying. I think that is a good suggestion in terms of having that customer service policy. If we have one, and the clerk and I have sort of talked about it here briefly, it's probably been a while since it was looked at, if we do have one. So I think if we do have one, it's due for a review. And if we don't have one, then it's high time we had one. So, and then as far as strategic planning goes, I think council's had a couple of sessions. There was some good discussion at the last one. So we'll pull together everything that we were able to accomplish to that point, and then get it back started up again and get that finished. I don't think there's a long way to go with it, but I think it would be important to incorporate the work that's been done by the downtown and the work that's been done by the Economic Development and Destinations Committee to incorporate that into the strategic plan as we move forward and finish it off.
Okay, great, thank you. Councillor Standison, new business.
Thank you, Your Worship. First, I'd like to start off with activities for next year from the Green Task Force that I'd like to share with Council. So the Quinty Trash Bash Day will be expanded into Ward 2 next year. That was held April 27th of this year in a couple of locations in town. So we're going to expand that out to Ward 2, and most likely it'll be the Jerry Masterson location. The second thing is they're working on a giveaway day, so similar to what other areas have done, where residents can put their belongings that they would no longer use, furniture and whatnot. We're going to do 2 of them, one in the spring around the May 24th weekend, and one in the fall in August. And then the last thing from the Green Task Force is Waste Reduction Week. So next year, Doors Open, their theme is the environment. So they've approached us, and we're going to be discussing it in committee to do a joint launch on October 17th. So that's it for Green. On new business, we've got, there's a LPAT hearing here in Chamber on November 26th. And this is in relation to a development at the corner of Maitland and Farnham that was rejected by council and has since been appealed. I've been approached by a couple of residents expressing concern that one of the lawyers that will be arguing the case against the city is in fact our integrity commissioner, Mr. Tony Fleming. And they would suggest that, that there's a conflict there. So I don't know what to do about it, other than maybe ask the clerk for some guidance. Or
Sure. Mr. McDonald?
Through the chair to Councillor Sanderson. There has been some discussion at staff level about that. It's been raised to staff already. We've talked to the city solicitor about it. Certainly I can raise it with the city's integrity commissioner, that it is a council concern that has been raised by residents as an issue, and see what his response is, and then share that with council.
Okay.
Thank you. And last, I'd like to respond in part to what I heard earlier from Councillor Carr. So the Finance Committee consists of myself, Councillor Thompson, and Mayor Panchuk. And as a resident in the city and a taxpayer in the city, you have the right to bring forward a concern to that Finance Committee and request a compliance audit. In the case that was brought forward, there was a named individual, and we've since discussed it here in chamber, so I'll mention it as well, Mark Fleur. There was discussions in terms of how we should handle that with the city clerk, and it was decided that based on the outcome of the Ymca and the information that the resident was providing, that a compliance audit was warranted. So staff undertook that audit of the 2 years mentioned, and there were no issues found, and we were able to respond back to the resident with that very information. What sort of complicates it, and not to make it sound like an excuse, is that the information that was gleaned through the compliance audit should have been provided to the resident on the initial Ymca request. Had that been done, then no request would have come forward to the Finance Committee. So just to close, there was no hunt for any wrongdoing. It was just a processing of a request. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I strongly suggest to all members of council that that conversation can easily have gotten the information that's necessary, rather than bringing it up on the floor here. I don't think it serves us or the residents well at all. But again, you know, all of us were all elected individually. We were sent here to work collectively. and our results, and the results or the residents will judge us together. And I just don't think it helps much, but as I said before, we have the right to do so. And I hope that in the future, we can have some of these conversations rather than bringing them up under new business. There are no motions, and there are no notice of motions. I'll move to announcements. Anyone have any announcements? Councillor Thompson.
Just one for me, and the worship out, and Bill Sanderson went out. Red Nose got kicked off Saturday morning, and they'll be doing 12 nights this year, starting November 29th. And always remember, we're getting people home safe, and that's the main objective. And we also raise money that will go to 2 different charities for kids for camp. So I look forward to participation from the public. Anybody wants to volunteer, they can go onto the Red Nose website, submit their name. I had a request already this afternoon from somebody. It's a great program. There's lots of fun. You don't get home very early, but there's lots of fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Mr. Chair, a couple of announcements. First of all, yesterday, all of us were at Remembrance Day here in Belleville at the Cenotaph, and it was a great turnout. And it was so nice to see the students at Foxborough Public School, St. Michael's, and Holy Rosary, to see those school buses. What an education, and it was so great to see them out there. Friday night, it's the kickoff. It's the Festival of Lights. Myself, along with Councillor McCaw, Councillor Millett, have been on the lighting committee this year, and we're excited about Friday. We've been working hard. We're going to have, we invite the city out. Freddie Vett is the musical entertainment that night. He'll be on stage around 6:30. We have fireworks planned at 7:30, and I know the mayor's going to touch on a flyby, just confirmed later this afternoon, earlier this afternoon from CFP Trenton. So we encourage everybody to come out in the city, be there at 5 o'clock. It's going to be exciting 6 weeks leading into Christmas, and it's the Belleville Festival of Lights. Thank you.
Else on that side? Anyone on the other side? Announcements? Okay, none. I have a few here. First, I'd like to start off by proclaiming November 25th as International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And it'll span from the 25th of November to December the 10th, which is also International Human Rights Day, as the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. I invite you all to attend the vigil on November 24th in Market Square at 4 p.m. Following up on Councillor Kelly's comments, I would like to invite all members of the public to the Festival of Lights event taking place this Friday evening at Jane Forrester's Park. This will be the biggest lighting up event in our history, and I hope you will join us down in the park. The night will be complete with live entertainment, fireworks, and a visit from Santa Claus himself. 5 p.m. the entertainment will start. 6 p.m. there will be a program with lighting. 6:30 we'll have Freddie Vett performing, and at 7:30 we will launch it with a tremendous fireworks display. Just this afternoon I was informed by city staff that CFB Trenton have approved our request for a flyby of one of our Hercules aircraft, and that will happen shortly after the program, after the lights are activated, but before Mr. Freddie Vett goes on. So that's very, very exciting. And that leads us right into this coming Sunday, which is the Santa Claus Parade. And I hope everyone will attend and enjoy it and enjoy the new route. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for all their work. And I also want to thank the Belleville Rotary Club for the reindeer in the park that they are trying to put on at Jane Forrester Park. So that is terrific. Since the last meeting, it's been a very busy time. Downtown Belleville District had a campaign launch of their new messaging, the Downtown District, and Be a Part of It. And they focus on the historic part of our downtown starting in 1816. It was very well done by the board and the volunteers of the BDIA, and I just am so proud of the work that has been accomplished this year already with it, and looking forward to more positive work in the future. I was able to attend Harry J. Clark, have a school visit, and face again some very interesting and really thought-provoking questions from 3 classes of students. Quinte Economic Development Commission had our meeting in November at Henry's pub at the Signal Brewery facility. We were able to show off part of Belleville that members of the QEDC don't always see. I was able to attend this year the Halloween at the Children's Safety Village, and even though we had inclement weather in the region, it was a great turnout of children that practiced safe Halloween trick-or-treating. I was also able to attend the Country Inn and Suites one-year anniversary of their event. A couple weeks ago, I was able to attend the 70th consecutive year of the Shriners Club Bantam Hockey Tournament being held here in Belleville. And what a busy place the Sports Centre was that weekend, not just with the Shriners Club Hockey Tournament, but also with swimming meets, and it was terrific. Councillor Sanderson and Councillor Thompson joined me to activate the lights at the Herkimer and Victoria intersection, and the response has been good from neighbors and residents. It has increased pedestrian and vehicle safety along that very busy stretch now that we've had the consolidation of Quinny Secondary School at the new Eastside Secondary School. This past Friday, my wife and I were able to attend Mayor Brian Ostrander's concert for the arts in Brighton. And the events that we had in May, starting with Belleville's own Week of the Arts, and the Mayor's concert is catching on, and it's great to see the wide variety of arts and culture that we have in our area, and it was really nice to be invited to Brighton. Mayor Ostrander has made a point of coming to Belleville for a number of events, and it was nice to be able to repay that favor. Remembrance Day, and on Sunday evening, Councillors Carr and Sanderson were able to join me at the Elmwood Cemetery on River Road for a very nice, very peaceful, very intimate remembrance ceremony. And I want to thank the cemetery board for the good work they do all year, but bringing on this event to recognize the 100 or so men and women who have served Canada and are interned at that cemetery was really moving. You know, again, I often pinch myself for the good fortune I have to be able to be in this position, and at days like that really make me proud. I was also very, very pleased to welcome Mayor Frank Scarpetti from the city of Markham, Ontario, who was with us that day, and we were very, very proud to be there. Councillor Kelly touched on what an amazing Remembrance Day we had this year at the Belleville Cenotaph. And we need to thank the Belleville Veterans Council for all the work they do, as well as our city staff for setting up. I was proud that all members of council were present, and I appreciate you joining me to lay the wreath on behalf of the citizens of Belleville for past service, but also current and future people. And I want to take a moment and also recognize, as Councillor Kelly spoke about, the number of children that were there. And I want to recognize that former Mayor Christopher had a concern about the fact that in the past we had not seen a lot of children. And I'm sure he would have been very, very pleased to have seen that the school boards took his words to heart, and we had a terrific turnout for that. So we have a busy number of days ahead of us coming up, including tomorrow, where I'll be attending the Trust Beverages, which is the partnership between Hexo and Molson Coors. Their very innovative center that they've got here at the warehouse on College Street East, and I'll look forward to be able to share more information about that in the future. Lastly, it is my pleasure to announce that I have called a special meeting of Belleville City Council for Tuesday, November 26, 2019 at 5 p.m. so that we may receive presentations from the 5 applicants who have expressed interest in purchasing the Memorial Arena and Legion buildings from the city. Belleville City Council has narrowed down the list of potentials to these 5 finalists. Given the significance of these existing buildings, we want every citizen of Belleville to be informed about what these interested parties are proposing. They'll be making a public presentation at the special meeting on the 26th, and we invite all who are interested to please attend. We recognize how important these buildings are to the citizens of Belleville, not only for their previous use, but also in terms of the future opportunities that these sites can provide for our city. So we will also be seeking input from Belleville residents before City Council makes a final decision. Sharing this information here in open council is an important part of this process. Property matters are usually dealt with in camera, but my colleagues and I strongly believe that this should be a very public process in the spirit of both transparency and open government. At the November 26th special meeting, each of the 5 proponents will be given 20 minutes to make their presentations. These will also be live streamed, and an audio-video recording of the meeting will be posted to the city's website. We will be inviting members of the public to share their input with us via email, regular mail, an online survey, and then during a special public meeting portion of the upcoming December 9th City Council meeting. It is our expectation that we will continue to hear from residents over the holiday season, and we hope to be in a position to make a final decision at our January 13th, 2020 regular City Council meeting. That is when we expect we will announce which applicant of the 5 we have chosen to negotiate a sale agreement with. We recognize that this is an important decision that will change the future of our community, and we have purposely chosen to proceed slowly, again to ensure that this is an open and transparent process. Council recognizes our duty to both the previous and current residents of the City of Belleville who have important attachments to these buildings, and we want to make the best decision as a community that will benefit us not only today, but for generations to come. We look forward to engaging with the citizens of Belleville as we make this very important decision. I'd like to now ask that bylaw number 2019-209, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on November 12, 2019, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 12th day of November 2019. Moved by Councillor McCaw, seconded by Councillor Kelly. All in favor, it's carried. Motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor, carried.